And welcome to today's broadcast. This episode is brought to you by Mr. Music. You need anything guitar oriented, go there. They're cool. They've been there since the 70s. All kinds of big rock stars go there, Bruce Springsteen, etc. Plus all the cool local band people go there. Mr. Music, Harvard Ave in Alston, I believe. But Brighton, Alston, kind of down there on Harvard Ave. Go there and visit. It's a cool place. So it's the broadcast, and today we're talking with Emily Sweeney of the Boston Globe. She's a Boston Globe journalist, and besides being a reporter and reporting on current events, she's involved or does a series called Cold Case Files. And the most recent iteration of that, what we're going to talk about today, pretty darned interesting. And I really thank Emily for taking the time out of her busy day. She has the conference room there for a while over at the Boston Globe, and going to talk about this new episode. I read it, but since you're here, I'm going to let you tell the story. So hello, Emily. Again, it's good to see you.
Hey, thanks so much for having me, Bradley. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course.
Especially to talk about these cases, the cold case files. I've been doing it for over a year now. And these unsolved murders, a lot of these cases, like there's somebody out there that knows something, you know what I mean? Sometimes it'll take like just somebody speaking up, somebody remembering something, somebody finally deciding to to get something off their chest. So,
how many have you done within the year?
Oh gosh. Yeah. I mean, I try to do, so it's a monthly, it runs monthly, but I try to do it more than monthly. You know what I mean? Because there's just so many cold cases, and sometimes things come up. So, but it's about monthly, and I also put out a newsletter too. So, each case I try to do a deep dive and put out a newsletter to spread the word, and you have people spread the word about these unsolved cases.
Tell me about the newsletter. That's different from the article. The newsletter gives you updates on each of the cases. Is that how it works?
Yeah. So whenever I put out a story, I try to, put out a newsletter as well, in case the Globe, we put out a lot of material every day, awesome content, lots of news stories. So in case you miss one of these stories, if you subscribe to the newsletter, it's a way to make sure you don't miss any of these cases.
How do you subscribe to the newsletter?
So if you go to globe.com, cold case files, you should be able to, they'll bring you to a subscription page. So,
okay.
Yeah, please do if you can. And I'd really appreciate it, because I'm trying to spread the word about these cases, like this one about David Cox, who, may not sound familiar to a lot of people, but
before you go on, I want to, I want to put up globe.com/what? I want to put up the banner for the newsletter. It's globe.com what?
Globe.com/cold case files.
Okay. Now go ahead. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, that's all right. No, so this story about David Cox, a lot of people haven't heard of him, but his experience in the military provided inspiration for the movie that you probably did hear of, A Few Good Men, which is a great movie. I just watched it very recently, and it definitely holds up after all these years. So, Aaron Sorkin, wrote the movie, and, let me back up a little bit. David Cox, right? He's a Marine, and he served in Guantanamo Bay. And he was involved in this hazing incident where another Marine got hazed, kind of dragged out of bed, and they were going to shave his head. And he ended up in the movie, the Marine who was hazed dies, but in real life, the Marine lived, and all the Marines who did that got in trouble. David Cox was one of them. He's a Needham kid, grew up, born and raised in Needham, and he was one of the few to fight the charges and say, no, I just didn't do this. It was an implied order from my officers to kind of haze this other Marine. So he took, that's taking a big stand, standing up to the military. He ended up, being able to continue serving in the Marines, and he received an honorable discharge. So when the movie comes out, he sees a lot of similarities to his experience, on the big screen. David was, pretty much pissed, and he wanted to sue. And right around, like, soon after that, what happened was he was also working for UPS part-time at the Somerville facility. And his brother, who I spoke with, said that, right before David disappeared, he said that he had witnessed sketchy activity happening at this UPS terminal in Somerville, which is still there. And yeah, so one morning he, his girlfriend goes to work, whatever, like, he's at home, he's waiting for a call, because he applied for a full-time job at UPS, and he never gets the message. There's an answering machine, like a message left in his answering machine. Girlfriend comes home. David's nowhere to be found. Okay. Their pet rabbit is hopping around the house. So, that's really odd. There are a couple things knocked over, but nothing crazy. Doesn't look like a crazy fight happened or anybody got dragged out. And another thing was missing besides David was his Marines jacket, which he never wore, like in normal circumstances. So David disappears. He's gone, right? And it isn't until, this is January 1994, his body isn't found until April. And it's really strange because, David's a Marine, right? Like, he's only a few years out of the Marines, and his body is found a few miles from his house, but in this really desolate wooded area. So he had walked with somebody, and then whoever, killed him shot him, like, in the back, like kind of like up here, like, you know what I mean, through his head. And then he also was shot in the torso. So, I mean, this was definitely like an execution style, you know what I mean? Whoever, like, led him out into this wooded area, knew what they were doing. And they also hid his body, but they also didn't take his ID. So it was very strange. Like, it was, I was talking to, David's lawyer, and even some investigators have said, like, it almost seemed like,
A message.
But yeah, exactly. Yeah. You know what I mean? That, like, they were showing, like, so I know it's kind of complicated, but, the one, especially for listeners of your show, Bradley, the one angle that I'm really interested in finding out more about is this UPS facility in Somerville, right? Like, if he, for some reason had witnessed some sketchy activity there, maybe he saw something he shouldn't have, maybe, that's the one thing that I think might hold the key to, like, whoever did this. So that's the story in a nutshell. It's very bizarre.
So are you connecting, do you think it had anything to do with his Marine experience, or more with something else?
When it first happened, there was quite a bit of media coverage. There wasn't, in the years to come. It's funny because a lot of people, when I wrote the story, they hadn't really heard. They're like, "What?" Like, you know what I mean? It's such a bizarre, like, situation. But there wasn't a lot of media coverage. Years later, the case was featured on Unsolved Mysteries back in the day with Robert Stack hosting, and when it first happened, a lot of the, I think the Marine angle was kind of, that's the first thing that came to mind because the movie had just come out not too long before,
Yes.
But as time went on, again, nobody knows what happened, right? Like, anything's possible. But for me, as a Globe reporter who's covered local news and stuff, I mean, the thing that really sticks out to me is, the possibility that he saw something maybe at that UPS terminal in Somerville.
Really?
His brother also told me, which this is also odd, to work as a UPS person at this delivery place. It was all Teamsters, and David told his brother that his ultimate goal was to work in loss prevention. So loss prevention, that's like a management position. That's like anti, you know what I mean? It's like the opposite. And you don't really, at least in my experience, hear of too many people like going from like, I'm a Teamster, like now I'm a manager, like so anyway, that's a very interesting angle. And and I'm not saying like anything against the Teamsters, my stepfather's a Teamster, you know what I mean? But I'm just saying that like that I think is like a lead that I'm trying to follow up more. If anybody who's listening to this or watching and knows anybody who worked at the UPS facility for UPS in Somerville in around like 1994, 1993, I'd love to talk with them. So
How long was this after he left the Marines?
it was like about I want to say, let's say probably a little more than 4 years.
And how do they know that he actually still had the jacket? He said the jacket was missing, like maybe it was taken at some point, or maybe he took it with him that night. But how do we even know that he kept
His
that jacket at all? Maybe it
his
hadn't been
girl
there for years.
his girlfriend noticed right away.
Ah, all right.
So his girlfriend was like, "What the heck is this like? You know what I mean? Like kind of like special Marines jacket that didn't really wear out ever. Why is that gone?" And he was found. His body was found wearing it in the same clothes he was wearing that day that she had left. That morning, the last time she
His body
saw
was
him.
found wearing the jacket?
Yeah,
The Marine
yeah,
jacket. Oh, I didn't know that.
yeah. So whatever happened, he was at his house and he either got ambushed, abducted, or agreed to go with somebody out into the woods. And yeah, and I've been trying to think of like ways like how like maybe he very well could have known these person or people, and maybe they made up a ruse, something to get, you know what I mean, like I'm not sure, like our buddy's hurt, can you help us, like hey, he's in the woods, you know what I mean, like maybe something like that. Again, I don't know, but I mean he was at his house and his car, his truck was still in the driveway with the keys in it, when the girlfriend came home. He wasn't like, he didn't grab like things like as if he was going away for a long time. He was wearing like running sneakers, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's just a really, really strange case, and I think, like I said, I think somebody knows something,
Is there any more following up that you can do in any way? Was it investigated thoroughly, do you think? And there's a lot of questions. Was it investigated thoroughly, and how will you continue on this?
Yeah, well, you know what? I think it was definitely, it's hard to say, you know what I mean? I wasn't there, but I have, a lot of these cases, you know, investigators do follow each lead that they can, and if they don't get anywhere, or if people aren't talking, or you know what I mean. So it's hard to say, but I mean the UPS angle just really is intriguing to me, and I think that the fact that he was found in between like a couple gun clubs, so it's a place like not only desolate but also where there's gunfire. So like a couple gunshots would not have been, strange. So whoever brought him there, and he was found like by the Charles River in like Milford, like kind of near this gun club in Millis, like that area. And I'm sorry, it was Medfield. I'm sorry. Anyway, it was near a gun club in Millis, and that somebody had to know the area. It's like somebody like you had to live there, you had to belong to that gun club. You needed to know. You had to like have that insiders like local knowledge about this spot, which is another interesting thing. So, you know,
Wow.
yeah.
So if anybody has any information, contact you. How do they contact you?
Well, you can if you can reach me on my email. It's emily.sweeney@globe.com. And also, if you Google like my page, it comes right up on the Globe, my email address. But yeah, that, or you can call me. My phone number is listed there too. So yeah.
Is it fun working at the Globe?
Oh yeah, it's a great place to work. you
And you've
know?
worked there. You're not very old. It's interesting. Emily's not very old, but you're now
Uh,
like one of the senior people there. Because if I'm,
yeah.
you must have got your gig there like what, 98 maybe?
2001.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, 2001. And then actually I worked as like a co-op, which is kind of like an intern-ish, in the 90s, in the late 90s.
And what
So
year did I meet you?
I think we met at Ozfest while I was working for the Brookline Tab, I think,
Yeah,
in 2000. If
2000. See,
I
it's funny how,
I'm pretty sure it might have been 99, but
right.
pretty sure it's right around then.
How'd you get the
So yeah, we
Globe?
go way back.
How'd you get the Globe gig? You were working at the tab, and it's interesting because back in those days, it seems like it was you could if you wanted to in radio and probably in print too. If you really worked hard, you could work your way up. How did
Yeah,
you get from the tab to the Globe? Did you send articles and say, hire me, hire me, hire me? Did you show up? Send me out
yeah.
on this thing. Like, what was your first? How'd you get your first shot, and what was it?
I mean, well, one thing is like, yes, I did like email the Globe recruiters and like HR, like my updated resume whenever I'd win an award or like do like some big story. I was constantly like mailing them like updated things on my resume, newest clips or like stories, the latest stories that I've written. And yeah, when I went in for like I think my first interview, there was like a huge box there, like, hey, like thanks for keeping us updated so much, I
Really?
was definitely
Wow.
persistent. Yeah. And
So
yeah,
persistence, that's really important because it took me 12 years to get my first talk show job, by the way, full time.
oh damn, yeah.
I started trying to get my talk show job at WBZ in 1997, and I got it at some time in the 2000s. You just keep sending, keep trying, and people like you get the gig. And I'm not sure that uh, younger people understand that these days. Well,
Yeah, no, I'm sorry,
okay,
good.
no, no, that's pretty much it. Good for you, man. Good for you.
Wow. Well, hey, thank you, Bradley.
Uh, uh, Now, one another question about how many murders go unsolved.
Uh, well, figures that I saw, Northeastern University just put out like a study report about the Boston Police Department's backlog of unsolved murders, and they listed for just for Boston, 1,000 between 1,700 and 1,800. That's just for Boston.
For unsolved murders for all time?
I don't know what date they go back to. I'm working on getting that, but that's actual cases that they have information about that they know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's
So
quite a bit.
if you're interested in crime and crime reporting, and tell them about your old school mob book.
Yeah. If you're into organized crime or like even anything to do with Boston history, I've written 2 books about organized crime and kind of like that look into the history of organized crime in the Boston area. One is called Boston Organized Crime, and the other is called Gangland Boston. And Gangland Boston is more of like a deeper dive into like some of the lesser known, gangsters and just stories and things that happened. And I tried to like, find out details about like where the guys lived, how they lived, and all types of
Yes.
stuff. So
Em-
Gangland
Em-
Boston, check
Emily
it out
actually
if you can.
Emily actually took me on a tour on some of the sites where stuff happened,
Yes.
which was kind of fun. I think it's important to note that it's not the usual Boston gang type of book because it's not well, the one I'm talking about is about the older, like the 20s and 30s,
Yep.
not the usual 70s and 70s, 80s kind of thing. So that makes it more interesting. And what about the Dropkick book?
Oh yeah. And I also wrote a book about Dropkick Murphy, the guy who the band is named after. Ken Casey was generous enough to write the introduction to the book. And that's also available on sale now, wherever you get your books.
Tell them what that's about.
Oh, yeah. So Dropkick Murphy, A Legendary Life is the first biography of John Dropkick Murphy, who was a professional wrestler got his start in the Great Depression, 1930s, and he put himself through medical school that way, wrestling at night, going to medical school during the day. And he graduated from medical school as a doctor, but he continued to wrestle professionally all over the country. And he also ran a rehab, like he opened a detox center for alcoholics in Acton, Massachusetts. And it's called Bellows Farm. And he ran that for many years after he retired from the ring. And it's a chronicle of a lot of like interesting stories and anecdotes of stuff that happened out there, and kind of like a piece of forgotten history.
And while I have the opportunity, I just have to say how much I admire Ken overall as a dude.
Oh, Ken's great.
You know, I remember doing some sort of in-store with them at the Fresh Pond Strawberries back in the very early days. Right? Back when Spicy McHaggis was with them.
Yeah.
And I've watched Ken in his career, and both as a musician and a showman, but as a dude. And Ken, if you're listening, I have the greatest respect for you. All right. I know that you have to give up there's going to be some big important conference coming into your Boston Globe conference room there soon.
Yeah.
So I'll let you go, but congratulations. And you're already working on your next cold case file.
Oh yeah. I have a bunch in the works actually. So
I guess you don't have time for hints, but you can find that out in the newsletter, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Yep. So the newsletter, globe.com/cold case files. Perfect. Yes. All right. Thanks for joining us on the Bradcast. You like the fun new name, the Bradcast, like broadcast, Bradcast? You get it? Okay. And we'll talk to you soon. Please don't let's wait so long, because I always enjoy speaking with you. It's a good way to keep in touch without actually without actually going outdoors. Okay. So all the best to you, and I'll talk to you soon. And of course, I will share, folks. If you know anybody be interested in this, make sure you share a link to this little conversation. Thank you very much, Emily.
All right. Thanks, Bradley.
Okay. Well, don't go quite away quite yet.
All right.